Hi, this is Kerry Artek with Wicked Stocks, bringing you your weekly Mag 7 update, where I cover the Magnificent 7 stocks in addition to Palantir as well. This is for the week, by the way, of Monday, April 20th, 2026. And I start with Microsoft as usual, having closed back above this 4 or 5 year channel bottom last week, did reject what had been considered a long-term sell signal. And so having climbed back above, settled back above the 40267 formation, we are no longer bearish this stock. In fact, I think there's good reason to consider the 480s as a 2 to 3 month objective. With present volatility, we just might see this by the end of May. So 40267 is a base of support, along with a descending 1/3 speed line we also closed above last week. It is a range of support that begins at 415.01, ends at 40267, and above which, over the next 2 to 3 months or sooner, expecting 487.98. 487.98, I'd call it near to midterm resistance. Nothing overly significant about it, but it can contain monthly buying pressures, and we could fall away from it. So I think for our purposes on a week-by-week analysis, that's all we need to talk about in terms of the upside for Microsoft. But if we do fall back and close the week below 40267, I would then take it in stair-step fashion. I would then anticipate within probably 3 to 5 weeks the 340s. 349.67 is that November 21 high, and 344.79 is the April 25 low. This area able to contain monthly selling pressures, and if settled below, would be bearish as we move into later years. So we are bullish above 415.01 if we're talking long term, like, into through the third quarter of this year, expecting the upper 480s. And if we close below 344.79 over the next month or two, then we're bearish over the same time frame and could find ourselves in the low 200 region within 2 to 3 to 5 months or so of closing below 344.79. But bottom line with Microsoft, we are bullish through May, above 415.01, 40267, good area to buy into, anticipating the upper 480s over that time frame. On to Meta. Meta in similar fashion. Now, this was 2 weeks ago, so this is kind of old information. But 2 weeks ago, we did close not only back above this channel bottom that's at 590.48, but also above the high of the low. This is a range of support that you can buy into on weakness. This is more of a 2 to 3 to 5 week swing trade, because if you may recall, I was only anticipating 703.34, this channel top. So this is really our two-sided framework into May activity, selling 703.34, buying 608.64, buying 608.64 in combination with 590.48. If over the next few weeks we close below 590.48, then we're back into the negative column, but only near term. That is to say, over the following 3 to 5 weeks, long-term support at 473.34 in reach within 3 to 5 weeks of closing below 590.48. The 473.34 4-year channel bottom, able to contain annual lows, and from here we can round up through the rest of the year. I don't expect to see it unless we close below 590.48. Now back to the upside once again. 703.34 is an area, number one, to take profits if you've been long the last couple of weeks, and you may be. It's also an area I think you can play the short side of the market ever so carefully, because from here we can grow overbought as we move into May and fall back into that 590.608 region I've already outlined. But if we do happen to close above 703.34 this week, that's a significant go with buy signal through the rest of the second quarter into the third. Over the next 2 to 3 months, I would expect this 892.29 and climbing weekly, 4-year channel top. On the way up, of course, you'll have that high from August of 25 where we could double top for a week, maybe a month, which is why I give it kind of a 2 to 3 month likelihood. Closing above 703.34, no good reason to be short Meta. You want to be long Meta if your time horizon is 2 to 3 months or even nearer than that, because I do see 892.29 as likely within 2 to 3 months of closing above 703.34. On to Alphabet. Alphabet closed back above this rising channel bottom that we settled below a couple of months earlier, and in the process set off a sell signal that was anticipating this kind of 236, 248 region. Obviously hasn't happened, and I don't think it will happen. In fact, this rejected that sell signal by closing back above 332.43. I do see higher trade on the horizon as we move into the month of May. Let's move on to the next chart. That 332.43 is represented here as a horizontal line above which, not only expecting quite possibly this week that 349 all-time high from February, but I think what is realistic is over the next month, depending on volatility and market breadth, but right now we have a vicious 3-week rally that, if it continues in this fashion, should yield 386.64 over the next 3 weeks. So that is quite possible. If we close this week above 349, I would expect this with present volatility within another 2 to 3 weeks. 386.64 is a 2-year channel top, roughly, that can contain quarterly buying pressures, and from here we can fall away. So I do think you can be long or go long or get long above 332.43, which is once again that channel bottom that we settled back above. This should be given the benefit of the doubt of containing weekly selling pressures. If we close back below it this week, I don't see it as a significant sell signal, but I think for the time being, this is your support that can launch us into the 380s and climbing over the next, as I say, 1 to 2, 3 months, and if we close above 349, even within 2 to 3 weeks, perhaps. Now, if we do happen to close back below 332.43, that formation I showed in the previous, we fall then to a more significant support area, and this is the zone I think you can buy aggressively into. I don't expect it unless we close this week back below 332.43, which I'll show you once again. If we close back below this formation, I do think it takes us into the low 300 region within just a few weeks. 299.94 is this descending channel top we settled above 2 weeks ago. 300.52 is the high of the low. This zone, solid support, able to contain selling on a monthly basis, and from here we can round up to 349 again within a matter of 3 to 5 weeks, perhaps. If we close below 332.43, I do think we collapse back into the upper 290s, low 300s. From there, can I envision rounding up into the 380s? No, I don't think it's certainly possible, but I would rather than take that in stair-step fashion, meaning at that stage, it probably would be a settlement above 349 that would then clearly indicate the 386.64. But right now, I think with the sell signal rejection and the settlement back above 332.43, we can anticipate those 380s, this 386.64 over the next few months, possibly the next few weeks. On to Amazon. Amazon, if you recall, threw off a sell signal a couple of weeks ago when it settled above the 229.86 formation, and that has set up, and I'll jump to that right now, that has set up, and I think I called this a 2 to 3 month target last week. With the way things are going, once again, with the present volatility and market breadth, we could see this by the end of May or sooner. Upside, of course, this week we've got the 258.60 all-time high from last November. It can contain weekly highs. We almost tested it actually last week. 256.18 was the high. If we close above 256.80, and I think that is likely over the next few weeks, the question is whether we top out in the mid to upper 250s and fall back to this 229.86 formation. If tested, can contain selling through May, and from here we can round up. I do hold 285.74 as a 2 to 3 month or sooner objective following that settlement 2 weeks ago above 229.86. If we close this week above 258.60, possibly within as little as 2 to 3 weeks, 285.74 is a 3-year rising channel top that can contain quarterly, possibly annual buying pressures. I expect it over the next few months above 229.86. If we happen to fall back and close below 229.86, I'll just take you back to this chart, and that would then set up this low area, 198.79, I would expect at the very least. And in fact, I can draw what I would expect. I don't want to commit to this just yet because I don't think we've got a good high yet. But if this is the high and we fall away, what I would then look for would be something in this realm, this horizontal channel bottom, which is in the mid 150s. So, if we do close this week below 229.86, a good high into May, over the next 3 to 5 weeks, we collapse back into the mid to upper 190s, where we actually could bottom out into the third quarter. And this formation, if this scenario were to play out, and I don't expect it unless we close below 229.86, but you can see how this support is dropping into, it stays kind of in the low 190s, but, by September it converges with this even more significant channel bottom. But I think you can say that you've got a mid 190s to a lower to mid 180s, mid 190s, mid 180s, long-term support that, if tested in the months ahead, can absorb selling possibly through the rest of the year. I would expect it if we close below 229.86. But once again, holding above 229.86 in Amazon will keep the 285.74 formation as a 2 to 3 month target. On to Apple. You should know that we cover Apple each and every week on the paid side of wickedstocks.com. You can take advantage of our 2-week trial. I go through the 3 to 5 day, 3 to 5 week. We zoom in, we open the chart up. It's a 5 to 10 minute video every week that really breaks Apple down. So if you trade Apple, especially if you're like a swing trader, 3 to 5 days out to 3 to 5 weeks, you want to check our work out because we really do guide. I think we guide it pretty well, but this is broad brushstroke. I'm not going to show any more than this because we've got subscribers who pay for that information. It just wouldn't be fair, but I do think it's okay for me to show this, 6-year channel top we've been topping out at twice now over the last 18 months can continue to contain annual buying pressures, and below which you should at least factor in the possibility of falling back into what is now the mid 190s and climbing on a steady basis over the next full year or sooner. In the video, I do give the downward pivot point for anticipating 196.99 within as little as 2 to 3 months, but not here. If we were, over the coming weeks, to close above 290.55, we enter a new normal. One of the things I would look at immediately for kind of the near to midterm would be this channel top, which is in the 330s by June. That would be the first objective within 2 or 3 months, but over the following year or two, the 390 and change full channel extension would be anticipated as an objective. On to Tesla. Now, you're probably already aware we cover Tesla every single day on our wickedstocks.com or our Wicked Stocks YouTube channel. So this is probably old information for you, but we did test this 1-year channel bottom a couple of weeks ago at 340.61. We were expecting it as a 2 to 3 month target when we settled below its sister formation that is now at 435.24. We tested the channel bottom 2 weeks ago. We came off of it as anticipated, and rounding up now to 435.24 is the likely scenario. I call this a 2 to 3 month objective, but we're about 2 weeks into that, and we're 60% of the way there or so. In any event, 435.24 can contain buying through May. From here, we could fall back into the 340s and climbing. We could continue to trade inside of this band for the next few months. If we close above 435.24 within 2 to 3 to 5 months or so, certainly by the end of the year, this 539.69 6-year rising channel top would be expected within 3 to 5 months or less of closing above 435.24. Downside, it's not going to happen this week, but if we did close below 340.61, you have a go with 3 to 5 month downside sell signal to 224.74, where we could bottom out through the rest of the year. On to NVIDIA. Once again, we cover NVIDIA every single day at wickedstocks.com. It's part of our trio, the Daily SPY, Daily QQQ, and Daily NVIDIA Report. You may remember it when it was on our YouTube channel not long ago. It is now, if you trade NVIDIA, if you like to trade NVIDIA, you should check us out once again at wickedstocks.com, where you can take advantage of a 2-week trial and see our analysis every single day. A few weeks ago, we settled above this 177.06 channel bottom. I should say back above this 177.06 channel bottom. That threw off a buy signal into the mid 190s, which did occur last week and then some. In fact, we closed above this 195.27 structure that now anticipates the 230s and climbing as our next 2 to 3 month target. Now, if you subscribe to wickedstocks.com, you'll also see secondary buy signals, trouble spots above the market presently that we're anticipating near to midterm that can contain weekly buying pressures and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're interested in all that, I urge you to go to wickedstocks.com, take advantage of the 2-week trial. If we do happen to fall away this week and close back below 195.27, I would expect the upper 170s within 2 to 3 weeks again. But really what I would look for would be something along these lines back into kind of the mid 160s, 165.96 and climbing trading, I think would be realistic. If we close this week, Friday, back below 195.27, then all bets are off to the upside, expecting a retest of the mid-160s. And finally, Palantir, not part of the Mag 7, but certainly a commonly requested stock. So we recommended buying the mid-120s a couple of weeks ago and a couple of months ago. This old high back in February of 25 can continue to contain selling on a monthly basis. From here, we can round up over the next few weeks, over the next month, two at the most. I think, if we can close above 150.48 this week, next week we test 169.15. Until then, we could trade inside of this mid-120s to low 150s range for the next few weeks. But if we close above 150.48, 169.15 likely the following week. In fact, holding above 125.41, I do expect this channel top at some point, whether it's in the next week or two or next month or two is anybody's guess, where 169.15 can contain monthly buying pressures. We can fall away from here. We could fill the wedge out between 125 and 169 for the next few months. If we close above 169.15, do I show it here? No, I don't. That's the next chart. If we close above 169.15, we're not going to see that this week, but we might see it by the end of May or sooner. And if we close above 169.15, after all the double bottom activity in the mid-120s, we are off to the races to the upside. That is a go with a buy signal that should yield the 235.51 rising channel top within 2 to 3 months and climbing. Downside, if we close this week below 125.41, I see it as an aggressive down pivot within 2 to 3 weeks, 97.08 within 2 to 3 months, the 63.40 to 66.12 region. In fact, this descending channel bottom will converge with that by early July anyway. So I could see a scenario where we close below 125.41. Within 2 or 3 weeks, we tag 97.08. We round back up into the mid-120s and then fall again into the low 60s. I've seen this a million times where the channel actually works to contain selling pressures, but not necessarily longer term, only good for a 2 to 3 week bounce, and then we fall again. I think that pretty much rounds it up. I'm past 15 minutes. Please click like, share, subscribe. Check out wickedstocks.com. Take advantage of the 2-week trial. I will be back next week, of course, with another Mag 7 update. You have a great week.